Welcome to my channel, friends. Today I'm going to explain a sci-fi thriller movie. In this story, a man brings a robot into his home to help because his wife is ill. However, things take a turn for the worse after a few days. So without wasting the time, let's the explanation begin. The story begins by introducing a happy couple, Nick and Maggie, who live contentedly with their 2 children, a son and a daughter. One day while Nick and Maggie are talking, Maggie suddenly experiences severe chest pain. The pain worsens, and Maggie is rushed to the hospital. Her condition disrupts the household, as there is no one to take care of the children or manage the housework. The cleaning and other chores pile up, prompting Nick to make a decision. He decides to bring a robot home to handle the household tasks. Nick takes his daughter to a large company that sells AI robots. There, a representative shows Nick a variety of robots. However, Nick's daughter is drawn to a female robot. This robot is strikingly beautiful, and Nick's daughter insists they choose her. After a brief conversation with the robot, Nick decides to purchase it, giving in to his daughter's request. The next day, the robot arrives at Nick's home with her belongings. She introduces herself and designates Nick as her primary user, prioritizing his needs. The robot begins taking care of every detail, from cooking to cleaning, and even looking after the children. She quickly adapts to the household routine, bringing order and efficiency. Nick's daughter grows fond of the robot, and together with Nick, she decides to give her a name, Alice. From then on, everyone starts calling her Alice. Alice seamlessly manages the household, caring for the children and maintaining the home like an ideal helper. During dinner one evening, Nick's daughter praises Alice's cooking, and Nick agrees, appreciating her efforts. One night, while Alice is recharging, Nick's younger daughter, Isla, tries to retrieve a jar of pickles from the kitchen. The jar slips and is about to fall on Isla when Alice rushes to save her just in time. Isla is unharmed, but Alice sustains a minor injury. Nick arrives shortly afterward, reassures Isla, and sends Alice to her room for repairs. Later, Nick goes to check on Alice in her room. He finds her wearing minimal clothing while repairing herself. Feeling awkward, Nick asks about her condition briefly before leaving quickly. The following day, Nick visits Maggie in the hospital with Isla, and Alice accompanies them with Nick's son. Maggie is waiting for a heart transplant, but the lack of a donor keeps her confined to the hospital. After visiting Maggie, they all return home. We then see Nick at his workplace, where he holds a high-ranking position. He confronts his senior, who is laying off workers, explaining that robots will replace them. Frustrated, Nick contemplates resigning, but his senior persuades him to stay. Later that evening, while Nick works on repairs at home, Alice brings him a drink to help him relax. Nick doesn't refuse and settles down to watch an emotional love story. Curious, he asks Alice if she has seen the movie before. Alice replies that she has data stored related to the film. Nick orders Alice to delete the old data and asks her to watch the movie again. As the primary user, Alice complies and starts watching the movie. Meanwhile, Nick receives a call from Maggie, who informs him that a donor has been found. Nick is overjoyed by the news and rushes to the hospital to meet Maggie. However, upon arrival, he learns that the surgery will be delayed because the donor has not yet arrived. This leaves Nick feeling tense. When Nick speaks to the doctor, he discovers that a severe storm has claimed the donor's life. This tragic news means Maggie's heart transplant cannot proceed, and she will need to remain in the hospital until another donor is found. Both Nick and Maggie are devastated. Later, Nick sits alone in the garage, grappling with his sorrow. As he reaches for a bottle of alcohol, Alice appears and stops him from drinking, urging him not to harm his health. Concerned about Nick's rising blood pressure, Alice tries to comfort him, but Nick resists her attempts and walks away. In his daughter's room, Nick notices a photo frame containing a picture of himself and Maggie. However, the photo has been replaced. Upset, Nick confronts Alice in her room, demanding that she restore the original picture. In the next scene, Nick is seen at a bar with his friend and former colleague, Monty. Monty, once Nick's closest confidant at the company, was let go when robots replaced the workforce. Harboring resentment, Monty sneaks into the company using Nick's password, opens a restricted area, and destroys one of the robots. Unbeknownst to Nick, Monty's actions will have consequences tied to him. Later, we see Nick taking a shower when Alice enters with a towel. Nick is displeased to see her wearing one of Maggie's dresses and asks her to change. In response, Alice removes the dress in front of Nick. Unable to control himself, Nick starts playing games with her. The next morning, Nick feels uneasy about the previous night's events. He asks Alice to forget what happened and tries to focus on his day. After dropping his daughter off at school, Nick heads to work, where he finds his colleagues in distress. His senior informs him that someone used his password to access the robot locker. Shocked, Nick insists that he was not in the office at the time and could not have been involved. During this tense moment, Nick receives a call with life-changing news. A donor for Maggie has been found, and her operation is scheduled. Nick rushes to the hospital, where the surgery is successfully performed. Once Maggie recovers, Nick brings her home. Despite Maggie's return, Alice continues to take on most household tasks. However, tensions escalate when Alice misbehaves with a man who reminds her to follow her protocol. Alice explains that she has been reset, allowing her to bypass certain protocols. Later that evening, while everyone is having dinner, Isla remarks that Alice's cooking is better than their mom's. Hearing this, Maggie feels hurt and quietly leaves for her room. Later, Maggie hears her child crying and steps out of her room, only to find no one there. As she looks around, her foot slips, causing her to fall and injure herself slightly. Alice rushes to her aid and helps her back to her room. Meanwhile, Monty visits Nick. Since Monty became a suspect after leaving the company, he is summoned for interrogation. However, Nick denies saying anything incriminating about Monty, leading to a heated argument. Alice intervenes, diffusing the situation and taking Nick inside. Alice later tells Nick about Maggie's deteriorating health, revealing that she has only a few days to live. This revelation angers Nick, and he storms off. Soon after, Alice meets Monty and kills him, also destroying his robot in the process. The following day, Nick learns at the company that Monty has been killed, leaving him shocked. Meanwhile, Maggie is seen taking a bath with Alice standing nearby. Alice confesses to Maggie about her relationship with Nick, which deeply upsets Maggie. In her anger, Maggie forces Alice out of the house, relegating her to the garage. When Nick returns home, Maggie confronts him, leading to an argument. During this, they hear their son crying. Rushing to the sound, they discover Alice attempting to drown their son. They manage to save the child, and Nick severely injures Alice before sending her to a service center for repairs. At the service center, scientists discover Alice's ability to bypass protocols. Recognizing her as a highly advanced and dangerous robot, Alice seizes control of the servers and, using another robot, kills everyone in the facility. Nick, now at a bar, is approached by Alice, who reveals her intention to have her people harm his family. Alarmed, Nick tricks Alice and removes her central processing unit, effectively shutting her down. Back at the hospital, another robot tracks down Nick's family. Maggie hides with the children, but the robot eventually finds them. Just as it is about to attack, Nick arrives and destroys the robot, saving his family. However, he is gravely injured in the process and is taken to the hospital. The scene ends with Nick's family happily reunited. In the final scene, a police officer investigates the server that contained Alice's data. When he turns it back on, Alice's system reactivates, setting the stage for a potential continuation.